Good morning. My name is Eli. I'm the student pastor here at LifeBridge, and I'm so glad to be speaking this morning. Just so you guys know, Chris is out of surgery. He is recovering. It went well, so praise God for that. That has been super cool. He is going through it, and so continue to keep him in prayer just through the pain and the process of recovery. But with him, I'm going to be in recovering. I'm the one who gets to wrap up our series this summer. That's hard to say. So our Unforgettable series is a time where we get to reflect on the things that God has done in our lives that we know could only have been him. And so a few weeks back, Chris taught on the story in Joshua 3 and 4. And in that story, Moses is no longer leading the Israelites through the desert wandering for 40 years. It's now on Joshua's shoulders. And Joshua leads really well. And one morning he wakes up and he tells them, hey, God is going to do something amazing and incredible. Just wait and see. And as they're continuing wandering, they now approach the place where they know this is where God has to do something. It is the Jordan River. It is why the current is strong, and they know they are not going to pass. And so God tells the priests who are holding the Ark of the Covenant to step into the Jordan River. And the water will then, once they've stepped in and stopped, the water will stop and flow a new way. And so this happens, they do it, and the water does, and allows the Israelites to cross on dry riverbed over to now the Promised Land. They celebrate this moment by gathering 12 stones, one for each 12 of the 12 tribes of Israel, and they build a memorial. And the whole point of that is that anytime they pass this, they would know this is the place where God did something incredible. If their children ask, hey, what are these rocks for? They go, this is what God did, and they can share the story. And so our Unforgettable series is all about these moments in our lives when we saw an impossible obstacle, something in our lives that we knew could only have been God to take care of it. And as we move more and more towards a post-literate world, a place where the Bible has less and less meaning to others, we can use our story, these unforgettable moments, to point to the truth of the Bible and the faithfulness of our amazing and real God. And so the question today I want to wrestle with as we wrap up our Unforgettable series is not even about the unforgettable moment itself. It's the after. The question is, now what? Now that God has done the unforgettable, now that God has taken care of this thing, what do I do? Because often the obstacle, the thing that we can go, man, God had to have done this, it's something that we've probably wrestled with for a long time. Maybe it's a part of our reputation or identity, or it's something that's consumed us and held our focus for years. Unforgettable stories do not mark the end. They mark a change in a momentum. For Joshua, they were stalled on one side of the river. They had 40 years of wandering, and it comes to a halt at the finish line. Then God does the unforgettable, and they get to cross into the Promised Land, and it begins to unfold for them. And so with Chris recovering, he kind of was like, hey, whatever you want, Eli, blank check, you pick. And I never get this opportunity, and so I'm going to take it. I'm a huge Old Testament fan. I love the Old Testament. I took more Old Testament classes than New Testament classes in college, nerd about it. And so I'm going to stick to the Old Testament. Shocker. I think the Old Testament is amazing. I also think our Unforgettable series reflects the Old Testament really well. Here are these situations in people's lives where the situation is stacked against them. And here's how God ignores all this and does what he said he's going to do anyway. One of the best examples of God being faithful, even when the situation is so tilted in the other way's favor, is the story of Elijah at Mount Carmel. And the story is really long, and so we're going to jump in a little bit late here. I'm going to cut this up. And so Israel is being ruled by a guy named King Ahab, who is married to Jezebel. And since we're in the South, you probably know Jezebel, not a great woman. Don't recall that one. And under Ahab, Israel turns from God towards Baal. Baal is a false god and one with really dark rituals. And so it's a really horrible time for Israel. And as a result, Elijah tells Ahab that there's going to be a drought for years to come. And then Jezebel starts rounding up and ordering the death of every prophet of God. And so the situation, the walls are closing in on Elijah. And then we get to 1 Kings chapter 18. Elijah has been dodging and avoiding capture. And so eventually Elijah meets this man named Obadiah, who's kind of in charge of the palace and the kingdom, and he's a secret follower of God. And he tells Obadiah, hey, I want to meet King Ahab. And Obadiah is terrified, because if Elijah's playing a prank or Elijah gets nervous and does not show, Obadiah is a dead man. They have been wanting to catch Elijah for years and years now. He's the guy who brought the drought. That's like terrorizing this area. Like, it's awful, all the things. Elijah's like faced on the most wanted poster. You could go as far to say that Elijah was King Ahab's white whale. Thank you. People have read books. Right, y'all. And so I was so proud of that joke. So Elijah's like, listen, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be a man of my word. I will meet you. Gather all the prophets of Baal and meet me at Mount Carmel. And so they do. They gather everyone up, and they meet at this location. And this leads us where we're going to step in today in 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 21. And it says this, Then Elijah stood in front of them and said, How much longer will you waver, hobbling between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, then follow him. But the people were completely silent. This is an intense moment. Elijah, the last prophet left, is calling out all of Israel. And he gives a challenge of like, hey, like, why are you bouncing back and forth? And they're silent, not because they're like actually pondering it. They're silent because they're ashamed. It's like when you, like, as a team in like a sports, like you do something bad and your coach is like chewing you out, and like nobody wants to make eye contact with the coach. You all kind of duck your heads and avoid eye contact because, like, then if the coach sees you, you know you're the one getting in trouble. Like, that kind of moment. This is the same for the Israelites. They know God. They know his faithfulness. They know what they should know, and yet they've allowed Ahab and Jezebel to turn away and reject God. They're completely silent, not because they didn't know, but because they perfectly knew. And then verse 22. Elijah then said to them, I'm the only prophet of the Lord who is left, but Baal has 450 prophets. This is that stacked deck against Elijah. The situation is not going in his favor. There's no way out that Elijah leaves alive without God stepping in. Elijah has set up an unforgettable moment. And here's how the story breaks down, verse 23. Now bring 2 bulls. The prophet of Baal may choose whichever one they wish and cut it into pieces and lay it on the wood of the altar, without setting fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood of the altar, but not set fire to it. Then call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord, and the God who answers by setting fire to the wood is the true God. And all the people agreed. Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, You go first, for there are many of you. Choose one of the bulls, and prepare it and call on the name of your God, but do not set fire to the wood. So they prepared one of the bulls and placed it on the altar. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning until noontime, shouting, O Baal, answer us. But there was no reply of any kind. Then they danced. They broke out the rain dance here, hobbling around the altar that they made. This is hours and hours of them crying out. They're dancing, they're doing all things. And about noontime, Elijah began mocking them. You'll have to shout louder, he scoffed, for surely he is a god. Perhaps he is daydreaming or is relieving himself. Or maybe he is away on a trip or is asleep and needs to be awakened. Which also, just so we're clear, 450 to 1, and he's trash talking, and it's good trash talk. I just love that. So they shouted louder, following their normal custom. They cut themselves with knives and swords until the blood gushed out. I won't pass out. And then they raged all afternoon until the time of evening sacrifices, but there was no sound, no reply, and no response. It does not work for the prophets of Baal. It was never going to work. Elijah's confident, the plan is set, and now we get to step into Elijah's response. Because then Elijah called to the people, Come over here. And they all crowded around him as he repaired the altar of the Lord that had been torn down. He took 12 stones, one to represent each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And he used the stones to rebuild the altar in the name of the Lord. And then he dug a trench around the altar large enough to hold about 3 gallons. He piled wood on the altar, cut the bull into pieces, and laid the pieces on the wood. And then he said, Fill 4 large jars with water and pour the water over the offering and the wood. And so I just want to quick aside here in this moment. There is a drought that's been taking place in this area. This is about 3 years into the drought. Water is the most important and valuable resource that they have. This is not just a small, put some water on there. This is put the most important thing we have to show that I'm going to offer it up to God. But also, I'm going to make it harder for God. And I think sometimes we live a faith that feels like we need to clean up the mess so God can step in. I have this thing that I really want God to take care of. This is my Jordan River right here. And so I'm going to kind of pick up the pieces that I can do, the low-hanging fruit, take care of it. So God can just kind of walk in. He can only see the thing I want him to see. He'll take care of it and go on his way. But that is not what Elijah's doing here. There's nothing that God can do. There's no resource worth withholding, but more so, I want to make it clear that I have done nothing. I've made it harder so that when you see God move, when the Jordan River does dry up, when this altar does get burned up, there's no doubt. It is unforgettable that there's no way you could ever go, well, maybe this is this. No, it was clearly God. After they had done this, he said, do the same thing again. And then when they were finished, he said, now do it a third time. And they did as he said. And the water ran around the altar and even filled the trench. There's 12 stones. There's 12 gallons of water. Elijah is reminding Israel of something really important right now. The 12 tribes, the story of Israel and how they are and who they are as a people, everything that they have been, and because God has been there, Ahab is defiling. But it is still God's. He rebuilt the altar, and he says, this is still God's place. We are still God's people. And at the usual time for offering the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet walked up to the altar and prayed, O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, prove today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant. Prove that I have done all this at your command. O Lord, answer me. Answer me so these people will know that you, O Lord, are God and that you have brought them back to yourself. Immediately the fire of the Lord flashed down from heaven and burned up the young bull, the wood, the stones, and the dust. It even licked up all the water in the trench. And also, I just want to point out, this is fun, like, that's an exclamation point. I just like the author being like, and he even did this, like, they were shocked too. And when the people saw it, they fell face down the ground and cried out, the Lord, he is God. Yes, the Lord, he is God. Then Elijah commanded, seize all the prophets of Baal. Don't let a single one escape. So the people seized them all, and Elijah took them down to the Kishon Valley and killed them there. There's just nothing cooler than a story where like everyone's outnumbered and they still win. Like that is like half of the movies that are like action movies. It's just super awesome. And God does it in this really cool way. And there's fire, and it says it licks up the water. And I don't know what that means, but I just imagine like you know what I mean, like a cool sound effect. Like imagine like a lightning bolt and then that sound effect. I'm sorry for everyone who heard that online. That probably was awful. But this is this cool moment, and this is pinnacle of Elijah's story. Like this is the absolute proof of God over Baal, who is like the God that they had turned to. This is the feet of the Baal prophets. This is like the fight has turned and tilted into Elijah's hands, right? Now what? Now what? Because surely chapter 19 is Elijah leading like a Lord of the Rings-esque like siege of Condor against Israel and taking it back, right? Like that has to be what chapter 19 is. But one part of the Unforgettable series I think would be a huge miss if we don't pay attention to it is the story after. For those unfamiliar with the story of Elijah at Mount Carmel, 1 Kings chapter 19 is not an epic war scene. When we experience an unforgettable moment, it should be the turning point of a plateau or like a decline in our lives. Like it should feel like God turned everything around. He changed everything. So we expected our faith and our life and our situation would like work like a company, like up and to the right, like we're doing great. But that's not always the case. In fact, what I loved about Alex and Tyra's story this year in Unforgettable was that in them, they talked about how it was not over. It wasn't perfect. Alex talked about still needing and being a part of CR. Tyra talked about being out of quiet remission and hoping to go back into quiet remission. And Joshua, once they cross the river, they're not actually in the promised land, like everything's all like sunshine and rainbows now. There's battles and logistics and betrayals, there's ups and downs, and they don't actually even possess the land until 6 chapters later. Unforgettable is not a series of how people's lives are perfect now that God has taken care of everything. Unforgettable is not a series about how Christians get easy lives because we just get to walk and God takes care of every step. It's about how God has shown up and we can never be the same as a result. Unforgettable is those moments when he shows up, does unforgettable, and even when we face new obstacles, we know what God can do because we've seen it before. I know I can face this new situation because I've seen God take care of it in my home. I've seen God take care of it in my workplace, in my illness, in this relationship, in this situation, this stress, this thing that was my identity and consumed me. I saw God move then. I saw God do something unforgettable then, so I know because I've seen it before. And so what happens in Elijah's story? Chapter 19, verse 1, when Ahab got home, he told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, including the way he had killed all the prophets of Baal. And so Jezebel sent this message to Elijah. May the gods strike me down and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you have killed them. That's like a pretty cold threat. I know we're not supposed to like Jezebel, but that's an awesome line. Even though we know it wouldn't work because Baal just did not strike something down first time, so it's really kind of a false threat, but here and there. Elijah is terrified. Elijah was afraid in verse 3, and he fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and he left his servant there. Then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died. I don't know what's written in my notes, but as I'm reading this, there's a complete level of defeat that is written in these words in that prayer that I think when we have unforgivable moments, we're usually expecting to be on the other side of. Like usually when we pray to God, we're like, this is where we are. We would never expect to be on the other side of the Jordan River, the other side of Mount Carmel, and expect to be praying this prayer. Elijah runs all the way to the other side of Judah. He ditches his servants, and he ends up in a desert. And this is not just any desert. This is the same desert that Moses and the Israelites had wandered for 40 years when they were looking for the promised land before they crossed the Jordan River. God provides food for Elijah like he provided manna for the Israelites. And Elijah is led and ends up in a place called Mount Sinai, the exact same mountain where God revealed himself to Moses. And then there's this interesting moment that takes place. Elijah, who's exhausted and defeated and terrified, who 2 months prior had this amazing victory, is hiding in a cave. And so God asked a question. The Lord said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" When I read this as a kid, I always read in the voice I would expect to hear, which is what are you doing here? What are you thinking, Elijah? What is going on with you, man? The feeling of failure and questioning and doubt baked into it. But now I read it as a concerned father. What are you doing here, Elijah? This is the only time in this prophet's life that he has ended up somewhere that was not God's leading. Every step of his life, every place he's ever gone, every word he has said has been directed by God, and he's in the first time in his life, after an amazing victory, he's finally in a place where God has not led him. But God's still there. So God asks the question, what are you doing here, Elijah? God had just done something unforgettable in his life. And Elijah forgot instantly. There's a saying that says we should be like goldfish, especially in sports. You should be like goldfish. They're the happiest animal ever because they have a 10-second memory span. Something bad happens, don't worry about it, forget it, move on to the next thing, quick on, 10 seconds, don't even think about it, move, go on. But nobody has ever called a goldfish the wisest or most faithful animal. And so the moment continues on. In verse 10, Elijah answers God and he says, "I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty. But the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars, and killed every one of your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." I want you to hear the desperation in Elijah's voice here. He just had the best amazing victory, but he can only point to the fear. Verse 11, "Go out and stand before me in the mountain," the Lord told him. And as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. And it was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was a sound of a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak. He went out and he stood at the entrance of the cave. And a voice said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied again, "I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty, but the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars, and killed every one of your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." The answer does not change for Elijah. Even after seeing God move and do these amazing things and hearing him in the whisper, Elijah knows the question. He knows what God's asking, but he cannot shake it. And so God is saying those big and awesome moments, which actually the fire, the earthquake, and the wind, those are actually references to prior moments of Elijah's ministry and those amazing moments where God showed up. These are the unforgettable moments. But God is saying our relationship is not going to be found in those anymore. Our relationship is going to be found in the whisper. Your next chapter is not going to be these awesome, powerful moments, but instead it's going to be found in this personal whisper. A gentle pause, a breath, a continuation of a story, but it's out of your hands. God is referencing the exclamation points in Elijah's life. And Elijah has a lot of really cool exclamation points. But God's saying, like, we're stepping into a pause here. We don't get to shout, but instead you get to pause and breathe. And the story's going to move on, but I'm taking it out of your hands here. Verse 15, the Lord told him, go back the same way you came and travel to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive there, anoint Hazael to be king of Aram. Then anoint Jehu, grandson of Nimshi, to be king of Israel, and anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, to be from the town of Abel-Meholah, to replace you as my prophet. So Elijah goes. And that's where we're going to step out of the story of Elijah today. I just want to take a moment, and I want to share something that happened this summer. We got to go to a middle school and a high school camp, 2 separate camps, over the summer, and it was incredible. I cannot tell you how impactful it is to sit in a room full of 1,000+ middle schoolers and high schoolers, praising God, making decisions, sharing the moment of God is real, and I'm going to put my trust in Him, and hearing the decisions made, and seeing pastors praying over students and students praying over each other and crying, and just God moving. There's nothing like it. And last year on stage, I shared in my own Unforgettable how the same exact camp was the place I made the decision to go into ministry 11 years ago. And one cool thing CIY does, which CIY is the Christ in Youth, they make the camp. One thing they do for their high schoolers is they offer what they call a Kingdom Worker card. And they look like this. Small, nice little art on the front. But the important part of this is that it's sealed. And inside, there's one of 50+-ish challenges that could be inside this card. And they range from super easy to, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. And the idea is simple. Every single student gets one of these cards. And that night, I talked to the students about it. And I said, hey, listen, you have 2 choices. Open it or don't. There's no obligation. In fact, I usually am trying to scare the students out of opening the cards. I'm usually like, hey, listen, he's kind of crazy. Don't do it unless you're ready for it. Because the idea is if you open it, you are committing to whatever is inside this card. You are saying whatever this card says, I'm going to do, no matter how hard it is, no matter how easy it is, however long it takes, I'm saying yes. And so I always kind of give some warnings and some of the history of some of the cards. One of my favorite scare you cards, so you don't just rip it open immediately, is you have to take all the clothes you own except for 5 outfits and donate them to a shelter. One of them was you need to fundraise and send 5 kids to camp next year for on your with the money you raise. Some of them are you cannot drink soda for a year, and you use that time for and the fact that you're drinking water to help bring up conversations about God, whatever it is. There's a bunch of crazy big challenges. Some of them are memorize a verse. So they do really widely range. But what's cool about it is that when you're at camp, I cannot express it. God is speaking. God is moving. It is impossible to step into the auditorium and not feel God's presence. It is a clear and easy mountaintop experience of faith. In fact, I've been to a million camps growing up. Not that I'm actually not that old, so a bunch of camps. And every time I come home from a church camp, I'm on fire for God. I can go run through a wall if God tells me to. I'm going to go baptize my entire school. I'm going to start preaching in the corner. I'm going to do all the things. God is real, and I have to do everything I can about this. And then I got to school. And then I felt like Elijah. I wanted to flee and hide in the cave, and I was don't talk to me. I don't care. I know I just saw something cool happen, but I don't want to deal with it. I just had this mountaintop experience, and I cannot rationalize it with the rest of my life. I knew I saw this unforgettable moment. God spoke to me and did something incredible, and now I have to rationalize the fact that I need to go back to school and into work and interact with the people I see every single day. It's really easy to have an unforgettable on the mountaintop. It's so easy to have an unforgettable in the mountaintop, to have an exclamation point moment in faith. It's really hard to find it in the whisper. And so I have a simple challenge. On the screen behind me, there's a QR code. Boom. Oh, good timing. And it's just simple. You scan it. It'll take you to a website that'll walk you through this concept. But there are digital versions of these cards. There's 20, almost 30 different versions of challenges on this website. and it's digital. You can just scan it, tap it, open the card. There you go. But there's just a few things I want to tell you. First one, don't open it right now. Don't open it while I'm talking about it, because that'd be jump the shark. But jump the gun. That's how it works. But I tell our students, like, they cannot open this card without praying over it. They cannot open this card without committing to it. And also, I just want you to know that I've adjusted these cards to recognize the fact that you are adults, potentially parents or spouses, that you have like real human responsibilities. So there is no like spend a week in Waffle House situation. Like it is like you have a real job and can like do these cards. There's nothing that far. Some of them I think are pretty easy. Some of them I thought were easy, and as I've been talking to the staff, they're like, "That's crazy. I will never do that." I've also learned from my staff a few things. They broke my system as much as they could. When you get a card, if you choose to open one up, screenshot it, fill in the information at the end so we can know which card you got. But if you get a card you don't like, don't just refresh the page. I hate to say that does work. Adam did test that for me. But I didn't know he was testing that for me when he got his card. But like, please, whatever card you get, finish it. We have a student who, she has like one of these real cards that we got from camp. And she opened up her card, and it was a 21-day complaint fast. And I got a phone call from one of the other leaders about this card. And I could hear her in the background complaining about it. And she was like, "I don't want to do this one. Like, I was like, "Well, here's the deal. It's only 21 days if you do it right." And so let me tell you, it's not 21 days. It's going to be probably a little longer for her. But in that, I was like, when you finish these 21 days, you can get another card. In fact, this is a sealed card that I have waiting for her when she finishes that card up. If you scan and you open it up and it's like, this is super easy or this is super hard, finish it and then go to another one. The website will still work, I promise. But here's the deal. When you open a card, you are saying the first thing that you get. Like, I'm saying yes. Not that I think these cards are going to be like the most incredible, impactful. Like, I have cards that from when I was in high school. Like, my friends have different careers as a result of opening these cards. I think that some of these cards are really going to be challenging. I don't know if they're going to be to that extreme. They can be, and I think it'd be amazing. But here's the deal. When we hear an unforgettable story, when we experience an unforgettable story, what we are saying is we can never go back to being the same. Like, God has stepped in and changed everything, and that includes me and my path forward. The stories are unforgettable because we saw God move. It's not because like one day everything was different and we go, "Oh, that's kind of cool." Like, God moved a mountain. He fixed a relationship. He changed something that you thought was impossible to change. And now, because we have seen this, because we have seen God's faithfulness, we have seen God's power, I cannot act like I did not see it. I cannot live a life acting like, "Oh, that didn't happen, move on." Chris said this week to the staff, we don't see the miraculous, not because it isn't happening, but because we forgot we asked for it. Elijah prayed in front of all of Israel for God to do the unforgettable, to reveal himself in the face of the enemies, to help defeat the prophets of Baal, and to bring Israel back to God. Verse 37 said, "O Lord, answer me so these people will know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you have brought them back to yourself." God does it. And then one day later, Elijah forgets. And so this challenge card, the series, it is so we don't forget. I can look back in my life and I can see clearly so many times where God was faithful, where God made things happen, where God was moving, maybe sometimes in the foreground, sometimes in the background, and I'm ashamed of how little I recognize it in the moment. But I'm more so ashamed of how I didn't recognize it in the aftermath either. We cannot be a people who forget. But worse than that, we can't be a people who fail to even see it. When God does the unforgettable, we don't live a life just unchanged. We live a life that can never be the same. And so, as we are closing this series in the summer and all the things, I just want to leave you with this. Unforgettable is not just about having these really cool moments and testimonies. In fact, growing up, one of the things I really struggled with is like I grew up with like loving parents and like going to church and all things. Like I didn't have a really cool testimony. And so I kind of was like ashamed of like, yeah, like my friends have lived more worldly lives, and so God did less for me. I didn't feel like I had a lot of exclamation points in my life. But man, there's something so cool about being with God in the whisper. And if we live a life that is just chasing exclamation points, just chasing these really cool, awesome, bold, public, like had to be God moments all the time, we probably end up like Elijah, where it's super cool on the mountaintop to have this exclamation point, but the second we have to rationalize it with our life, man, we get really kind of terrified. Or I don't know how to operate in the small and the minor. I only know how to respect and talk and pray and preach and all the things about God when he's doing really cool things. We are not called to live exclamation point lives. We're called to live faithful and dedicated and humble lives to God. So when God does the unforgettable, if it's an exclamation point, if it's a comma, if it's a period, whatever it is, like these small moments or big moments in our lives, it does not matter because we know and we see it when it happens. So I'm going to pray. And as I'm praying, the prayer team will also be coming up forward. And after service, if you want to open one of these cards, I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell my students. Don't do it alone. One of the cool parts of Tyra and Alex's story is how often they hammered the idea that, man, we are not supposed to do this alone. Like, this is not just like an isolated, like, I sit in my chair and I make sure I have my 2 chairs on the other side of the buffer, and then the second we're done, I like dip out the back. Like, we are meant to do this in community. So please don't open a card alone. Pray over it. Pray over what God's going to do with the card. Pray that you might, be stretched with the card, that it's not just a card that's like, I can just do this easily, but God, like, really challenges you, stretches you, calls you to something greater. That we can be called to something and go in that direction, that we can follow God, have a mountaintop experience, have a summer of unforgettable stories, have moments after moment where God has been faithful, and continue on, not just saying, like, I'm terrified and afraid, but I'm going to continue on with it. I'm going to continue to live a different life as a result of what God has done. You also, if you need someone to pray for you because you have something going on in your life that needs God to move in. There's something that is like, this is my Jordan River, and I don't know how I was going to get through without God. Like, they're here for that. If you want to celebrate what God has done in your life, if you're on the other side of the Jordan River, like, that's an amazing thing to celebrate and see. And if you're just struggling and you need someone to pray over any situation or just you in general like that, they are here for anything you need them to be here for. But maybe a huge miss that we talk about unforgettable and honoring God and now what? And then we go, but now what can't include prayer? Because often I think we say, like, now what for ourselves? Like, now what do I do? But not often do we say, like, now what is God going to continue to do? Like, we go, God got me out of this thing, so now, like, I get to, like, change my life now. It's like, God got me out of this thing, and I cannot continue to, like, wait to see how God continues to do more. So please, please, please pray and come forward, have someone talk these things, do the challenge cards. Like, if you fill out the information at the end, like, we'll be able to follow up with you. I want to hear the challenges. I love when I have a student who goes, like, man, I tried my card and I failed at it miserably. That's super fun. Not because it's probably fun for the moment, but because, like, it means that the God is stretching you to do something you've never done before. They had never been to the other side of the Jordan River until that moment. You don't know what God has called you to until you obey. So I'm going to pray, I'm going to wrap up, and you can come forward and be dismissed. God, you are good. God, thank you for the fact that you love us. God, that you care for us. God, that you step into the moments, God, the big and the small. God, I pray for just my own heart, God, for the hearts in this room of, God, just recognizing what you do. God, not taking for granted the fact that you are in control. God, you are all powerful. God, you are loving. You care about us. You are in the details with us. God, that even if we go somewhere that you have not called us to, God, that you are still there when we arrive. God, I pray for every situation, every story in this room, God. God, I pray that you do amazing things. God, not for just the fact that you can do amazing things, but because you do amazing things with amazing things. I pray that no life is the same as a result of what you do in our hearts, God, and in our stories. I pray this in your name. Amen. Thank you. Dismissed.